They negotiated a pact with the adversary regarding you. A concrete bargain. No metaphor, no symbolic turn of phrase. A literal contract established in obscurity, drafted in secrecy, where an individual convened with an ancient, malevolent force and declared, "I want them dismantled. What must I sacrifice?" And they surrendered. They relinquished something vital. They signed away a portion of their being, their lifespan, their vitality, their essence to secure a single outcome. Your downfall, your silence, your devastation. They desired your union dissolved, your resources depleted, your reputation tarnished, your physical form damaged, your sanity shattered. They wished you so broken that recovery would be entirely impossible. And that transaction was ratified. The compact was finalized. Your identity was recorded on a ledger in a dimension beyond your sight. And the agents of obscurity declared, "We shall execute this." Here is the reality that remains unspoken. The truth they desperately hide from you today. When the adversary demands payment, he overlooks not a single specification, not one provision, not one commitment. He recalls every term of every covenant ever struck. He remembers precisely who surrendered what. He remembers exactly what was guaranteed, and he is untroubled by time. He waits. He allows the years to roll by. He permits the perpetrator of the pact to believe they are triumphant, to believe the agenda is succeeding, to believe your distress is verification of their personal authority. And then, when they have advanced as far as humanly possible, when they have hit the absolute limit of what that contract could ever provide them, he reverses course. He reverses course, and now the moment has arrived to demand payment, but not from your hand. You have sensed it, haven't you? Something has been deeply unsettled. Not merely the standard friction of existence, not just a difficult week, not just one of those heavy phases that everyone eventually encounters. This has felt distinct. This has felt calculated. You awaken at 3 in the morning and encounter an oppressive presence in the room. Heavy, distinct, as if a physical weight is resting upon your chest. You have experienced moments where your thoughts wander to territories they have never visited before. Unbidden impulses, sudden panic arising without a rational trigger. You have watched resources that were once secure begin to slip through your grasp for reasons you cannot rationally account for. Partnerships began to splinter. Individuals you trusted began behaving oddly, distancing themselves or turning against you without any justifiable cause. Your physical frame began exhibiting strange symptoms, like a fatigue that rest cannot alleviate, ailments arising out of nowhere, a density that tracks you from one space to the next. And the most damaging element, you began questioning if it was merely your imagination. You started asking yourself if perhaps you were the root of the issue. Perhaps you were simply unfortunate. Perhaps you were just inadequate. Perhaps something was inherently defective within you, and this was merely the nature of existence. That is precisely what they intended for you to believe. That is the architecture of the plot. When malevolence targets an individual, its primary objective is to force them to mistrust their own grasp on reality. Because a disoriented mind is a vulnerable mind. An individual who believes themselves to be the problem never seeks the true origin of the hostility. But you are on the verge of grasping a truth today that will fundamentally alter your trajectory going forward. Here is the actual sequence of events. Someone within your circle, or someone from your past, concluded that your progress was an existential threat. Your brilliance was too intense. Your capacity was too obvious. Your joy was something they could not bear to witness. And rather than confronting their own deficiencies, rather than performing their own internal labor, they sought an underhanded route. They discovered it. They descended to a dark space, perhaps literally, perhaps through an association of individuals who manipulate ancient mysteries, practitioners who understand how to navigate the spiritual landscape, and they entered into a covenant. They granted entry. They declared, "Here is this individual's name. Here is the damage I require inflicted upon them. And here is the price I am prepared to pay in return." And for a period, it appeared to be functioning. Perhaps you witnessed the decline in real time and found no explanation. Portals that ought to have swung open remained locked. Allies who stood beside you began behaving like strangers. Prospects vanished precisely when they should have materialized. You felt the projectiles striking from every angle. Financial blows, relational strikes, physical ailments, psychological burdens. And you stood there attempting to preserve your cohesion, trying to comprehend what was unfolding, trying to petition heaven harder, or labor more intensely, or exist more perfectly to make the onslaught cease. But here is the perspective no one offered you. You were never destined to be extinguished by this event. The covenant they established possessed a fatal vulnerability from its very inception. When they surrendered your identity to the dark, they encountered a reality that overturned everything. They struck an obstacle. They collided with a shield they did not know existed. A covering was positioned over you that their transaction could not nullify, and the agencies they mobilized began returning to them with demands for explanation. Why is this failing? Why does this individual remain upright? Why have they not collapsed? And now, the invoice is presented, not to you, to them. Contemplate this for a moment, because I truly require you to absorb the gravity of what I am conveying. When you strike a bargain with the dark, when you enter into an alliance with forces dedicated to annihilation, you do not get to remain an inactive observer. You signed the document. That means the burden of fulfillment rests on you. And when the contractor fails, when the outcome you guaranteed could not be realized, when the subject they targeted with all that malevolent energy remains standing, remains breathing, remains progressing forward, the debt collector returns, not to the individual who was targeted, but to the person who unlocked the portal. There exists this magnificent, devastating order where the pit an individual constructs for another becomes the very cavern that consumes them entirely. Reflect on this. Reflect on every account you have ever received, where someone invested their entire existence in another's ruin, only to watch their own reality disintegrate from the core outward. Consider the individuals who have poured their total energy into bringing someone low, into fracturing someone's resolve, into dismantling the thing another worked to build, and then you observe their path 5 years later, and it is beyond recognition. The partnership they cherished is finished. The wealth they gathered vanished. The standing they established shattered. The vitality they took for granted began to fail, and they sit there questioning where they went wrong, failing to grasp that the root of their collapse is that the transaction they initiated possessed an expiration date. The pit they excavated for you, they plummeted into themselves. The snare they set for you, it ensnared them. The altar they erected with your name inscribed upon it, every ceremony Every malicious focus, everything they launched against your existence, has reversed. It returned, and it returned with accumulated interest. It inevitably does. And I comprehend what is passing through your mind right now. You are thinking, but I am still in pain. I am still enduring the consequences of everything that launched itself against me. If they are the ones destined to suffer the backlash, why does it still feel as though I am the one carrying the burden? That is the most critical inquiry you could possibly make. And I will clarify why. The lingering discomfort you experience is not an indication that the hostility triumphed. The residue you are navigating is not evidence that the shadow prevailed. What you are experiencing at this moment is merely the final tremor, the concluding vibration of an entity that has already been overthrown. Imagine a tempest that uprooted trees in your vicinity. The storm has departed. The electricity has ceased. The gales have quieted, yet the fallen timber remains blocking the path. You must still clear the wreckage. But the tempest itself is finished. It has already moved on, and the agency that propelled that storm is now confronting an entity far vaster than you. This is the juncture where you must determine how you will interpret your own journey from this day onward, because there are two interpretations of the narrative you can adopt regarding what you have survived. Interpretation 1, I was assaulted and I barely escaped, and I am still in recovery, and perhaps it will recur, and I will never truly reside in security. That is the interpretation the shadow desires you to inhabit. That is the perspective that keeps you diminished and terrified and defensive and constantly scanning your surroundings. Interpretation 2. I was selected, and every weapon they directed at me dissolved. Every single one, because a shield was preserving me that they could not access, did not comprehend, and could not dismantle. And now, the energy they exhausted trying to break me is being channeled back upon them, and I am liberated, and I am advancing, and I am entering into the entirety of everything that was always designated for my life. That is the interpretation you were designed to live. Let us address the specifics, because this is where the reality manifests. You have likely already begun to observe a pattern. There are individuals who were highly visible in your sphere during the absolute depths of your struggle. People who materialized far too conveniently, who appeared nearly gratified when challenges beset you, who posed inquiries that resembled intelligence gathering rather than genuine empathy. Recently, some of those individuals have grown silent. Some have vanished entirely. Some are confronting crises in their own spheres that they never anticipated, such as sudden reversals, unexpected deprivations, chaos in sectors where they believed themselves invulnerable. You might have even experienced a touch of remorse for recognizing this, as though it is improper to witness that an individual who plotted your downfall is now encountering retribution. But understand this, observing the reality of these events is not equivalent to taking joy in another's suffering. You did not cause this. You initiated no schemes against them. You are merely observing the universal law of reciprocity, executing exactly what it was always designed to perform. Every output of energy returns to its origin. It is a fundamental law. Every intention launched eventually makes landfall somewhere. And when the hostility directed at your life discovers it cannot penetrate the space where you stand, it must navigate elsewhere, and it retreats to its point of origin. And here is the reality that is about to strike them with massive force. They believed they could evade the payment, but the universe retained the record. Every term of their commitment, every clause of their pact, every measure of energy they surrendered to ensure your ruin. It has all been documented. And now, the Recovery Division of the Unseen Realm is stationed at their entrance, demanding entry. In our world, everyone comprehends the finality of a due date. This is no vague metaphysical concept. It is the most tangible circumstance they are about to encounter. The Collector has arrived, and the opportunity for flight has concluded. They believed they had executed a perfect theft. They believed your hardship was confirmation that their design was successful. But they failed to realize that the interest on their malicious deeds has been compounding in the dark, month after month, year after year. Every dark focus they projected gathered interest, and now the invoice has arrived, and there is no mechanism to declare spiritual insolvency. There is no negotiation, no deferral, no grace period. The terms were established the evening they finalized that compact, and those parameters are now being executed with absolute accuracy. They desired your brilliance without paying the corresponding cost, and now they sit in obscurity, wondering how their entire existence disintegrated. They are pleading for clemency now because they finally comprehend who they were, truly challenging. Not you, but the presence that was shielding you throughout the entire ordeal. Let me clarify the nature of the energy they exhausted, attempting to break you. They toyed with fire, believing they were immune to the flames. But the smoke is finally catching up. The smoke is filling their lungs now. It is present in their connections, their resources, their mental stability. They are searching for a departure route, but there is no rear exit in a transaction with the adversary. Every path they attempt to take returns them directly to the identical destination, the reality of the pact they signed. And you do not need to take any action. The force they projected is merely returning to its origin, with all the accumulated weight of every hour they spent scheming against your life. Observe how rapidly they collapse when the true authority enters the space. When the presence manifests at their threshold, all their plots, all their meticulously organized agendas, all their covert assemblies and whispered pacts, it all disintegrates. They will attempt to negotiate. They will attempt to transfer responsibility. They will attempt to claim ignorance of their actions. But the documentation is absolute. The covenant is binding, and the balance is being collected. Here is a truth you must absorb about yourself, and I require you to let this settle deeply. The reason you were selected for assault in the first place is not because you were fragile. No, the reality is the opposite. The reason an individual took the extreme measure of entering a dark pact regarding your life specifically is because something within you, your potential, your destiny, your frequency, your future, something you carry was identified as an existential threat. You do not target an individual who possesses no influence. You do not exhaust your vitality-building altars against those who present no obstacle to your intentions. The intensity of the opposition you encountered is directly proportional to the magnitude of the destiny you carry. They attempted to bury you, but they failed to recognize you were a seed. Now you are expanding, while they are dissolving. They targeted you because of what you are equipped to achieve, because of where your path was leading, because of what would unfold when you finally stepped completely into your true identity. And even in the center of every obstacle they hurled your way, even in the phases when it felt as though your entire existence was fracturing, when sleep evaded you, when the path forward was invisible, when you questioned your own worth, you did not halt. You did not halt. You are still standing here. You are still progressing, which means the primary objective they sought to realize, your absolute defeat, never occurred. Reflect on the meaning of that. Reflect on what it reveals about your strength. I need you to sense the transition occurring right now. Not conceptually, but physically register it. There is a physiological shift that transpires when a person fully comprehends, at a cellular level, that the threat they have feared is already being managed. The shoulders release. The respiration deepens. The chest, which has been constricted for so long that the tightness became your normal, begins to expand. Something that has been held rigid for months or years begins to soften. Not because the discomfort has entirely vanished yet, not because every detail is resolved, but because you finally perceive the complete landscape. You finally grasp what actually transpired, and you finally recognize where this trajectory concludes. The compact they struck with the dark regarding your life has reached its end. The forces they mobilized to work against your progress have targeted them instead. The very framework of spiritual containment they constructed to restrict you is the exact enclosure they inhabit today. And you are positioned outside of those walls, more liberated than you have been in years, with every weapon designated for your collapse, repurposed as propellant for your elevation. The adversary does not forget. That is factual. He preserved flawless accounts of everything they guaranteed, every single specification, and those provisions are being demanded at this very moment. But the collector is not appearing at your threshold, and here is where the entire narrative resolves. They struck a bargain concerning your life. They surrendered something of immense value, a portion of their identity, a piece of their destiny, a segment of what could have been their own progress, to purchase your ruin. And what they received in return was fleeting authority to introduce a pattern of interference into your existence. Chaos, disruption, disorientation, all of it genuine, all of it agonizing, none of it lasting. But what they failed to secure, what they were never destined to obtain, what no covenant forged in obscurity can ever truly purchase, was your final defeat. They could not buy that. It was not for sale because the version of you that exists in the completeness of your power is not an entity that can be traded away. It is not an object that rests on a shelf waiting to be shattered. It is a force that evolves, that adapts, that becomes refined in the furnace and emerges stronger and more authentic than it was before. Everything you navigated, every terror, every covert scheme, every inexplicable loss, every instance when it felt as though the earth was dissolving beneath your feet, all of it was constructing an internal architecture that the author of the pact cannot access, cannot damage, and cannot comprehend, because they designed their campaign against a version of you that no longer exists. They were operating from an outdated schematic, and while they were occupied executing their strategy, you were transforming into an entity their plans were never formulated to contain. So here is the sequence that unfolds now. Here is what time to collect actually translates to, not merely for them, but for your life. It signifies that every unit of energy directed against your path is returned to you as acceleration. Every portal that was locked against you generates a momentum behind the next portal that swings open.